Last night at the gala, you said that your last documentary might be your last documentary, and I'm really hoping it's not, but I was wondering why you said that.
Well, I said it at the end of Capitalism, a Love Story, which you'll see at the, if you haven't seen it, if you're going to it this afternoon. And if not, it'll be on home video next week, I think. Well, there's a lot of reasons. None of them are going to sound very good. I'm tired. I've done this for 20 years. I started 20 years ago in the hopes of saving my hometown of Flint, Michigan, in the hopes of getting companies like General Motors to turn around and listen to the consumers and the public and all that. And so we know what happened to Flint. We know what happened to GM. And you know, if you make a number of these films, and you know, you can sit back and feel, wow, I was really ahead of the curve. And what good does that do? Other than a few, you know, pleasurable moments in the shower. I mean, what's... Oh, I was ahead of the curve. So love myself. I said there weren't going to be weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Just a wild guess. I wasn't a weapons inspector. But I had a good feeling that we were being lied to. And I really couldn't think of a worse lie really that you could make than to take a country into war under false pretenses. That's my poor dad. He was in the 1st Marine Division in the South Pacific all through World War II, and he's still with us. He'll be 89 in August, and he's just been beside himself with, you know, because anybody who's really been in a war never wants to see that visited upon anyone else. And so I and many of you remember that February 15th, a month before the war started. I'm sure you had a march here in Sedona. I'm sure we had one up in northern Michigan. Millions. It was the largest mass demonstration across the country in the history of the United States, February 15th, 2003. And a month later, the war started. On the 5th day of the war, I won the Oscar. And I asked my fellow nominees that if I win, I would like to invite you up with me on the stage, which was completely against Academy rules. And so I did win, and they all came up with me, and I stood there and I said, we make nonfiction films, but we live in fictitious times with a president elected with fictitious election results. And if you remember, if you were watching, all hell broke loose. And they started lowering the microphone on the stage. And the band started playing, and and I was able to get my last line off that anytime you got the Pope and the Dixie Chicks against you, your time is up. So, but no one remembered the humor of the moment. And it was pretty rough going there after that. I was pretty much persona non grata, if you remember. I remember Keith Olbermann attacking me. I remember Al Franken telling me that the war was right. I remember Harvey and Bob Weinstein, who were producing my film, telling me that I needed to support the war. My agent, Ari, the famous Ari, telling me that the war was right. And I'm sure many of you remember that kind of lonely feeling, taking that, especially once the war started, because you got to support the troops. And of course, everybody felt their hearts went out to the soldiers who were caught in. I mean, these kids had gone, most of them after 9/11, because they wanted to defend the country. We were attacked, and they joined with they were willing to give their lives so that we wouldn't have to. What greater gift could you be willing to offer to defend us in case that happened again, right? Or to go get the people that did it, right? It's like So it wasn't about the troops, but you know, I went through a lot. I won't go into any of it, you know, publicly right now because but nonetheless, Kathleen and I and a few others, we decided to kind of pick ourselves up after we were told that we were toast in Hollywood, and that'll be the last time that I'll go to the Oscars and all that. And we decided over the next 12, 14 months to make Fahrenheit 9/11. And when I look at Fahrenheit 9/11 now and look back at where my head was really at, which was I was under complete and total attack by, again, the Keith Olbermanns, and who has since apologized, and of course we know he's doing great work, and Al Franken and all the others, but liberals were for the war. So to sort of pick myself up and to make that film, I look at the film now and I'm going, wow, what possessed me to make that film and to just stick to it? I'm because I know myself better than that, and if you knew me better than that, you'd know that I'm not as brave as I may appear to be. So so I'm not able to turn GM around. I'm not able to save Flint. I'm not able to stop a war that's still going on. 2.5, 3 years ago, I think, okay, nobody's been allowed to talk about health care since Hillary got booted, and Hillary Care got booted. And so I thought it was time to bring this subject up again. And now it's in full force, and now I see what's going to happen. Nada. So after all of this, I just am at the place of, I don't mean to sound, I don't want you to leave with I don't want to, I really want people to be optimistic, and I do want hope to survive all of this. But on a personal level, it's taken a lot out of me. And you can, I mean, I've never been a skinny guy, but you can, if you watched Roger and Me the other night, I look like a normal Midwestern guy in that movie. And at what point do you say this is hurting me too much personally? You know, this is doing too much negative on my own existence. And yes, it's good to be selfless, and I try to be as selfless as I can. And I know you like to see these movies, and I like to make them, but there are those moments, and they are many, where I think, what is the friggin' point? Because nothing seems to really change. And then I go back and I take the long view and I say to myself, well, you know, actually things do get better. We were a slave nation of slave owners, you know, and women couldn't vote. It wasn't even 100 years ago, you know, that the majority of the population couldn't vote. So that means we lived in an apartheid nation because the minority controlled everything. So if you look at that, the long view of it, things get better. Our daughters, thanks to, you know, the Mary Fishers and my wife and all of you women, and have it better. That statistic this week in the paper about there's now in college, there are more women in college than men. That's, to see that, to have my dad, to have older people to be able to live long enough to see that, that's an incredible accomplishment. So I try to stay there in that place as much as possible. But personally, I don't want to be this thing where, well, Michael Moore will take this on next, you know, and I've got, you know, 1 million people on my website, and I got 750,000 Twitter followers. And it's like, well, we better get off our ass and do something. And frankly, and I say at the end of this current film, I expect you now, we need 1 million Michael Moores and 1 million Cindy Sheehan's and 1 million Mary Fishers and 1 million Noam Chomsky's and 1 million, I mean, just Howard's, yes, God bless his soul. You know, we need the 23-year-old Howard Zinn. We need to find the young people and nurture them and give them space, because us boomers have really crowded the map for a long time. And we really need to have these young filmmakers, young artists, young political thinkers, give them some space on the center stage in order to turn this all around. So I'm not saying I'm not going to do it anymore. But the next thing I do, I've been writing a fiction film, so I may do that. And I've been writing a play, and I've been writing a one-man show that I did in London a few years ago, and I may do it in New York next year, maybe. And I've got a book I'm writing. So I'm busy, don't worry about me. I have work. I just want you to hear I'm just human, that's all. I'm just like you, right? Do you ever get tired?